Now moving to Module 4, Public Facilities and Improvements. The purpose of this module is to provide a basic overview of how public facilities and improvement activities are funded and tracked under IDIS Online. For the manual materials, refer to Chapter 9. These Chapter 9 pages cover those activities that are completed with a National Objective Code of low-moderate area. This next slide begins to show the various matrix codes to be used for public facilities and improvement activities. Note that each one represents a different type of either public facility or an improvement activity. HUD's desire is that you use the most specific matrix code. Note that the 03 code is not listed first. It's actually the last option and only used if no other more specific matrix code applies. See Appendix A for the matrix code list and then page beginning A-3 for the matrix code definitions. This second screen of matrix codes finishes up the list with 03 at the very end, meaning for other public facilities and improvements where nothing else more specific would apply. An example for 03 would be an American with Disabilities Act compliance for general government buildings that would be otherwise ineligible to be covered by CDBG funds, and you be sure to set up each activity individually. Now as we look at our next slide, infrastructure improvements will typically qualify under the low mod area benefit National Objective Code, keeping in mind that the area must be primarily residential. The activity undertaken must benefit all residents of the area. Facilities for persons with special needs may qualify under the low mod limited clientele National Objective Code. However, other National Objective Codes are available, such as some may fit the slum blight area, the low mod jobs, National Objective Codes. So when in doubt, refer to the cross-reference handout at Appendix C. So some key points to keep in mind. One, be sure that you are using the most specific matrix code. That way you're accurately reflecting the use of the funds and what type of activity is being undertaken. Do avoid combining different public facilities under one activity. Why? Because once again, the matrix code would not be reflective of the use of funds. For example, if you're doing a youth center, a senior center, and a neighborhood center, those should be three separate activities, one under with youth and the funds that are being spent for that, one under senior center, one under neighborhood facility. With other types of activities for the CDBG program, you may report on accomplishments, for example, from housing. If you're doing 10 housing units under one activity, you'll be reporting on the progress of that activity. So maybe there are 2 housing units that have been completed within a year and there's still 8 left to go. In the public facility and improvement activity type, should be reflected only when the activity is actually completed and thus the benefit being realized. Quarterly and annual updating in the narrative section allows progress to be noted until the activity is ready for completion, but it doesn't impact the accomplishment numbers. A second area is in the reporting units of service versus number of unduplicated persons. For example, a transitional housing facility serves 20 people over the course of a year. The number of persons served should equal 20, not 1 person per night of shelter for the year. To report on the LMA universe, you'll want to be referring to the census data, which can be found at www.hud.gov/offices/cpd/census. Download the spreadsheet, add filters, then filter the spreadsheet for those tracts with over 51% low mod. That will help you identify what areas are actually eligible. Now we'll take a look at the LMA screens and what to expect. Adding a new activity, first you'll start out with a screen that everyone, regardless of the program area, will complete. And then we'll proceed down the CDBG screens that will require specific program area detail. For public facility or improvement activities, you'll notice that the detail page 3 requires the Lma area county. On page 4, they'll then be looking for the census tract. And on page 5, the Lma area block group or groups. Keep in mind, you'll need to remember to click the Calculate the Lma percentage button that is on page 3. There really isn't a prompt, so we will highlight that at the time that we work on the case study. Only when all of the required information is provided will the activity show Ready to Fund. Now let's take a look at the updating or completing an LMA activity, specifically for public facilities and improvements. You're going to be, once again, refer to your Chapter 9 in the manual. On page 1 of the updating or completing is the narrative. On page 2, it's going to vary based on the type of activity that you're undertaking. Then you'll take a few minutes, about 5, to answer the 4 discussion questions. Then we'll come back to go over those answers. Once we finish that, at that time we will then read through and answer the case study assignment as a group in IDIS Online, setting up our activity and taking it to completion.